Hey y'all, this is Cindy. I'm the Tireless Tangler and I am back with you. It is time to start our new project and it is called the Tangled Ribbon Flower. At least that's what I'm calling it. You can call it whatever you want. And what we're going to do is I am going to teach you a series of ribbon tangles. This would be considered a ribbon tangle or a border tangle, I suppose. Sometimes we could fit even grid tangles in these. But what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you each day a new tangle that I feel like would fit into this project well. And of course, you are always welcome to use the tangles that you like. But having had some experience with this, the simpler, the better. And so I'm going to be choosing things that I feel confident that we can be successful with. The second thing I'm going to teach you each time we do one of these lessons is I'm going to teach you one technique that you can use to practice on with making these sort of curled ribbon petals. And each time we do that, I'm going to move the tangle that we learn onto one of these petals, okay? And you can follow along with me. This is going to be fun. Now, I will tell you, this is okay for beginners. However, this is a much more advanced technique. The ribbon curling, I should say, is a more advanced technique. And if you prefer it, I don't want you getting frustrated. I want you to have fun and relax with this. So if you prefer and you're not comfortable or you can't seem to get these ribbons right, then you can do something more simple and just do them straight out like this in each direction. Okay? So let's get started with today's lesson. Sarnia-cherie is a very pretty ribbon tangle, and it's done like this. So you start with a line, and of course, as with ribbon tangles, it can be straight or curvy, however you like. And you want to draw a parallel line close in on each one of these so that you have sort of a double banded ribbon, okay? All right, now, and this double aura is really an important part of this. It's what separates this tangle from the rest of the world, if you will. So particularly if you're using this in a tile with other tangles on each side of it, you really want this separation in here, okay? So let me show you this tangle. This is a tangle done with spirals and orbs, all right? It has one small spiral, and that starts up at the top. And comes down at an angle, sort of like a heart half, a bit like that, okay? Then we're gonna start at the point where we stopped, of course, and we're going to draw another spiral in, and it's going to touch the top and all the way down to the bottom. And it's going to be larger, okay? All right, so then you're going to draw a curved line from about midpoint here up to the top, all right? And then, of course, here is where your next spiral would start. And my cautionary note to you is you want to touch as you come around, all right? And you want to try to start and perform this stroke the same way in which you did this one, if that makes sense. Adjust this light. All right, okay. Now, the next thing is that she adds a little orb here between these two elements, and both the top and the bottom. And that's not a very good it's not a very good facsimile of that, but that's basically it. All right. And so this would be the large one coming down around, and it's going to touch and go back up around, sort of like in that. And we will have a little orb here. Let's see if I can do a little bit better job here. We just want to touch on all sides. Yes? Okay. The last step is we're going to add a little line weight. Okay? And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it on the downstroke. So think this through with me. This is rather like the faux calligraphy suggestions that I gave you in the Jester video with the word hope on it. Which, by the way, we have a new face mask design up on Teespring that has that design on it. Okay, so just a little bit of line weight here. And then ink it in. I'm going to leave a sparkle, but that is not in the step out. So either way is fine. By the way, I'm using my 01 today, and that is much nicer for the sparkling, I should say. All right. Okay, so this is a downstroke. So we went down here as well. So we're going to put one of those right there. Okay. And ink that in. And you do not have to leave your sparkle. It barely shows anyway. Okay. So each place in this where we've got a downstroke happening. Up. Down. Although I believe she leaves all of her line weight in the step out on this, on one side. So I think I'm going to skip doing this one. But this is definitely a downstroke. In this. Okay, this one. And here. And I believe that's it. I will have to double check in the step out, but I don't think there's anything additional here. And this is basically the tangle. And the reason I chose this is because this is very simple, and it's going to translate really well to a ribbon that is not the same size. Okay, meaning that the size of it, the width of it will change. Okay, so let's try that out for a little bit. Okay, I'm going to switch here in my sketch pad and show you the first ribbon technique that I want you to learn, and then we're going to put this in that ribbon. All right. Now, my first suggestion is that you use a pencil and that you have an eraser available, because when you learn these ribbon techniques, they're going to require practice. I practiced them over and over and over again when I first fell in love with ribboning about 3 or 4 years ago. And so, all right. So the very first one I want to teach you, of course, and most of you already know that the first petal is going to be like this. All right. So if you can draw this, you know, from a center circle or orb or whatever we end up doing, okay, if you can do this, this is our first petal shape. And so for today, I'm going to give you one extra, and that is this one, okay? You're going to start the same as this. When you get to the apex where you would curve around, all right, I want you to curve a little bit further or skinnier and sort of make a J shape, okay? Just out in sort of a thin little J shape, all right? Now, this next part you can do one of two ways. You can follow this curve around like so, all right? And then make sure you have it rounded and shaped the way you want. And then you come back here and do this. Yes? Okay. So let's try that one more time. This time I'm going to do this in one stroke on the first part, all right? So I'm going to go out, curve into my J shape. I'm going to come around, sort of leave it looking like a tongue, and then up like that. I guess more exactly would be a little bit closer in, but again, that's why you may need your eraser. All right, so I want you to practice this type of ribbon petal and this type. And don't assume this type will be easy, because sometimes the simplest ones are the hardest. Okay? So now for practice today, I'm going to, let me just use one of these. I'm going to use this example. And we're going to do the ink and add the Sarnia-cherie tangle to this petal and see how we do, okay? If you're a beginner and this does not work out very well for you, then stick with this shape and practice what we're doing in here, okay? The very first thing after you tangle the lines, after you ink the lines, Simba says hi to Karma in case Lynn is watching. Okay, so for doing either one of these, the very first thing you're going to want to do after inking the outer line is to draw your inner aura, okay? Now, there are two ways that you can handle these. You can run these off the edge as if this were straight and just keep going as far as these inner auras, but I really like to go ahead and do a round all the way. Of course, you can do as you wish, as always, right? So now, for Sarnia-cherie, we're going to put in our, and let me see if I can draw this from this slightly off angle here. Start with our sort of half-heart spiral, then coming up. And we are going to be getting larger as we go around, so make sure you touch the tops and the bottoms. Right? Well, that did not go as well as I wanted, but we live and we learn. All right, so leave yourself plenty of room on your spiral to do your inking. Okay. Oh, it's between. Oh, and here we have this line. That's what I was forgetting. All right, so the next one starts here, more towards the top. Let's see. Well, I almost hit it. This reminds me of one of those old-time bicycles with the front wheel much larger than the back wheel, or yes, than the back wheels or wheel. Whatever type of bicycle you've got, it's going to work for you. Okay, and then ink and or sparkle, as you will. This time I decided not to sparkle. All right. And I'm rather rushing through this because we're going to do another example here. But this is how you basically do this. You follow the dimensions of the ribbon. Just go with the flow. Yeah. So each one you do is going to get larger as you move forward. See, I forgot one again. You guys don't ever sweat it. If I forget one, it'll happen. All right, so then I add these. And now, let's see, let's do this. Sort of hint at what else is going on here. And then let's add our orbs now, which would be here and here a little bit, and here. Try to touch all sides, which for me is sometimes difficult. Okay. And everything will get larger or smaller as you go. And if you have trouble starting at the small end, start somewhere in the middle and move out from there on each side. Okay? This is going to be really fun in that flower, right? It's going to be fun and dynamic. And so for shading, let's hit that really quickly. It does most of the work for you. I think for me, I'm going to shade a little bit on the inside of this line. Since this is not something she has inked in the step out, I'm going to shade it instead of inking it. And then I'm going to get each of these little orbs, just a little crescent. I'm not going to sweat them very much, unless they get really big, in which case I might do some extra shading. But for the most part, when you've got orbs and you're tangling, they're quite small. And so all they really require is that little sort of crescent moon of graphite. And you do a little bit here. We're going to see how that goes. And here. It's my first time to try shading this, so we're going to find out how this goes. And I kind of like that. All right. So that's basically it, and I really like shading it in this fashion. I think that's going to work really well. All right, so now let's look at this one and see what we need to do to accomplish this. Now I'm going to, when we get to our project, I'm going to be working on hot press watercolor paper, okay? Or maybe an opus style, we'll see. But it's gonna be larger, so you may want to source some paper for yourselves that will work like that. I'm going to be using ink tints on mine. You may do watercolor, whatever you have available. Just letting you know now what we'll be using for our finished tangle. And all of these lessons right now are meant so that you can practice each time a new ribboning technique. You'll have to forgive my wiggles today. You'll have to, because they're not going away. Well, I sort of got that in there, and this isn't great. This isn't a great example, but it's going to work. Okay, so very first thing you do is draw those inner auras. This is what happens when you take off a couple of days from drawing, which I did, and thank you guys so much for understanding that I really just needed a break. I needed to get some of the housekeeping done, if you will, for the channel, and so I got a couple of those videos done. I've got a couple of beginner videos filmed and not yet edited. What am I doing? Now these that come in, when you are doing ribboning, what you have is this element overlapping this one, okay? And so when you come in with your inner auras, you have to think about, okay, this one is going to be coming from here, right? And this is basically crossing over in your view from beneath here to the top side, right? So as you bring out these ribbons on top, you always want to bring them from the point, and then wherever you bring this up, that's about the spot you want to use. Okay, so if I can get back where I'm supposed to be with this aura, it sort of went to town and took a vacation. What's up, Simba? What you got to talk about? What you got to say to people today? Says, I miss my brother. Brother went over to his family's for his cousin's birthday, and he is no doubt having a good time. Okay, so once you've got your inner auras drawn in, all right, now is the time that we're going to start with the tangling. And what I normally do with these over the top ones is I start up here on the top and do it out to the end, and then I figure out where I need to be on this underside to get it where it's going, okay? So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna shift this slightly so I can get a better angle to draw, and then I'm gonna fill in and as you can see, most of these look different, right? But it's still the same pattern. Okay, so this will be, just give a hint of what's going on there. All right, then we need to draw in our center line here. From the center of this one up to the top of the next element. Okay, then we're going to draw in our orbs. There's a little one here, but I'm not sure anybody will see it. And remember, these go between the elements, not here, okay, and not here. All right, and so I think I've got them all here anyway that you can see. And let me now add my line weight and just put it where it makes sense on that stroke to sort of thicken that line. And again, I did not leave enough room to really do that well, so note of caution. Here is better. Let's see. But as we learned in the 100-day project, you know, don't prejudge your outcome, and this is practice, so don't freak out. Remember, just choose one side and thicken the lines along that. I don't have much help here. Sort of like that. As far as the rest of this goes, it's just a hint anyway. All right, so now what I'm going to do is not worry about what this is up here because it's so small right here you really can't tell. And I'm going to start at my narrow end and I'm going to do my tangle up this way, okay? Let me shift this just a little bit. Touch the side and the bottom, or the top and the bottom. Touch. And it was supposed to touch the top like that, but I didn't quite make it on that first one. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be and like this. All right, so now let's add our little center lines coming down from the top. From the top down. Think of it as the seat on your bicycle. Ow. Okay, now let's add our orbs in. Remember, they go in between the elements. Remember, one element is this spiral connected to this spiral, okay? Try to make your orb as large as you can fit in that space. Touching on all sides if you can. And in my case, touching on all sides and then some. But this is going to work regardless. Okay? And now add your line weight. Okay. Remember, line weight is just an extra thickness on a side to just give some emphasis. It can be used in lieu of shading in some instances. It gives a little bit of dynamic, gives a bit of a dynamic look, a bit more 3D. So this is a really good technique. Just reminded me that I need to add this to my beginner's video that I'm editing right now. The line weight and rounding part, because let's face it, I use those all the time. And they are a big part of enhancing tangles. That's why we call them tangle enhancers. What do you think? Remember, for you beginners, tangles are what we call the patterns we draw. We can also call them patterns. No police will come It'll be fine. Whatever we call them, as long as we're all speaking the same language, and I mean the language of tangling, that's what's really important. In German, they call them Muster. I guess plural would be Mustern. Stimmt das? Meine deutsche Leute? Deutsche sprechende Leute? Kann euch bleiben, dass ich in Hessen gelernt habe? Die schuschen alles. Shush, shush, shush. Oh yeah, this is going to be perfect tangle for this flower. I'm going to like it because of its dynamic qualities. It's going to really pop out on the petal that we use. And so, yeah. Now, for shading, what's different on this is we will shade these elements all the same way. But on these where there's overlapping here, okay, then we're going to really shade darkly in this area, because this will be casting a shadow over this, and that's as far as I'm going with the shading today, guys. Don't make me do more. As always, I'll remind you to learn shading. You should get in touch with Eni Oken, E-N-I-O-K-E-N, best teacher ever. There you go. That's my recommendation for shading. She has an ebook called Shading Fearlessly that I highly recommend. I believe she's on Etsy for some stuff, but I'd go to enioken.com. All right, I am not going to stop and shade these elements, but I really like how they turned out on this, and keep practicing this, and not necessarily like mine, but keep doing it until you get it to look right, okay? Till you get it to look the way that you want to. And remember, this is done, and I can do these in ink, they're just not always very good. Done with a J, a narrow one, come out, join up with your line smoothly, like so. And there you have a ribbon. All right, so practice the tangle, practice the ribbon technique, and practice putting the tangle in the ribbon. All right, you guys have got your marching orders, okay? And I'm gonna see you soon with our next Tangled Ribbon lesson.